How do you get media attention for your nonprofit organization when you're trying to raise awareness about your mission or a special project or event? In this video, I'm going to share some of my personal tips from engaging with the media through my own nonprofit organization over the past several years. Welcome or welcome back. My name is Amber Melanie Smith, and I'm a nonprofit founder and executive director, and I make these videos here on YouTube all about things relating to starting and running a nonprofit, creating a social impact, and more. If you are starting a nonprofit or developing a sustainable fundraising plan for a nonprofit, definitely check out my website, foundertofulltime.com, where I have some online trainings for just those topics. And I hope that, as always, you find this video helpful and useful. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Okay, so whether you are kind of at the beginning stages and you're starting a nonprofit, or you've got an organization that you're working with or have started and you really need to raise some awareness about some aspect of the issue that you're tackling, or a special project or a special event you have coming up, the media can be a great ally to you. And especially when you're new or a smaller organization and very few people know about you or have heard your name, getting some media attention and especially repeat engagements with the media can really help build your credibility as an expert on the issue and as a nonprofit, which of course we know leads to more people wanting to support your cause. So let's get into some of the tips on how to engage the media and get this media attention so that you can make sure more people are aware of the wonderful work that you're doing. I'm going to share 6 tips here, and these are things that have worked for me and other professionals that I work alongside in the nonprofit world. And the first one is all about relationships, and it is to build and cultivate relationships with media professionals. If you have been watching my videos for any amount of time, you've probably heard me talk many times about the importance of relationships when it comes to basically everything that exists in the nonprofit world, from relationships with donors to relationships with your own team and board of directors to relationships with other nonprofits and businesses in your area. Relationships basically make the nonprofit world, and probably the whole rest of the world, run. So same thing here. Just remember that media professionals and journalists, they're humans too. They rely on human connection and personal relationships as well. So one practical thing that I recommend you do, especially if you haven't had any media attention before, is to just go ahead and reach out and introduce yourself to your local media professionals. And this could be journalists or media professionals in local television stations, radio, blogs, digital stuff, video, etc. Whatever type of media attention is most prominent and has a strong audience, and of course aligns with the way that you'd like to get visible to your community. Reach out, introduce yourself, make sure they know that you exist, who you are, your role with the organization, and let them know about some topics that they might be able to reach out to you about, whether it's nonprofits in general or something related to your specific issue area like homelessness or animals or food insecurity or the environment or whatever issue you are tackling. Let them know that you're there and that you have information and expertise that they might want to call upon for a quote or a story in the future. And once you've reached out, it's important to maintain these relationships over time. So perhaps every couple of months you reach out and remind them you exist and just share something interesting going on with your organization or something going on in the community related to your issue area, related to your nonprofit, that they might want to know about, just to maintain that relationship and make sure that they keep you top of mind. Okay, if you are not sure how to reach out to a local media professional or journalist, it's pretty easy. Most media platforms will have a contact page. Many even list the specific names of their of their team members, their journalists on a page, and sometimes have like personalized emails or phone numbers for each of those. So that's an easy way. Just look on their website to find the contact information. And if you're being real strategic about it, maybe even start yourself a little spreadsheet where you are tracking all of the different media professionals you've reached out to, who they work for, what types of topics they cover, and their email address. So you can build that media contact list for yourself going forward. Tip number 2 kind of ties into tip number 1, and it is to demonstrate your expertise. So in addition to just staying in contact in general with journalists and media professionals in your area, you want to be a credible contact for these people. So reach out when something is going on in the community and the world that has some kind of relationship to what your nonprofit is working on. Let's say a huge national report came out that says poverty is on the rise in the United States. Well, you could reach out to your local media professional, link to that report, and say, hey, you probably saw this report came out nationally. I have some information on how poverty is impacting people in our local community. Let's talk. I'm an expert on this. Let's have a conversation and see if maybe you can use a quote of mine in an upcoming story. Once you do this for a while and really have established that trust and credibility, you might even find that journalists start reaching out to you because they know you're an expert on a particular topic. I've had this happen to me a couple of times where journalists just know, hey, Amber is that person who can talk about this or that. And they'll reach out and they'll say, hey, this thing's going on. Do you have a quote? Do you have anything you want to weigh in on here? And of course, I'll give them some information, and that helps my organization stay visible to the public eye over time. Tip number 3 is to practice and get really good at writing a simple press release. If you have never written one before, or you're not quite sure what a press release is, it's basically a short, like maybe 1.5 page long news story about a topic that will be used to kind of pitch a story to the media in the hopes that they'll want to learn more and make it a bigger story. So practice writing a press release. There are lots of great templates and examples online that you can find for free. But the whole idea here is you want to make it really compelling and inspiring, hopefully, or at least thought-provoking. And consider that journalists receive a lot of press releases like every day. So you're really going to want to make yours catch them in the very beginning. So I would think of what is the most interesting thing or the most important part of the message that you want to get across related to whatever it is you're writing about, your mission, a special event you got going on, a project, etc. And put that at the very top. I know it might seem counterintuitive because you might think, oh, I want to get them to read the whole thing, so I'm going to put the interesting stuff at the bottom. But that is the opposite of the approach you want to take, because what's going to happen is they're just going to read the first few sentences, and then if it's not interesting, they might put it aside. So you want to hook them right in the first couple of sentences and say your most important stuff up front. Other than that, you want to make sure you have your basic details like who, what, where, when, why, your W's, incorporated into the press release. And of course, very, very importantly, a way to contact you, including your email, your phone number. If you want to be accessible to the media on your personal cell phone, you can include that information as well, and your name and your title with the organization. It would really not be fun if someone loved a press release you sent, but you didn't include your contact information. They have no idea how to reach you, or you make it hard for them. So make it easy for them. Tip number 4 is to entice the media with an opportunity to cover something that is visually appealing. And obviously this is for the type of media that would include visual components like television or even a print publication that might have some photography in it. But think to yourself, what might be visually compelling or literally interesting to look at related to what you're trying to pitch whether it's your mission overall or special event or project. And then when you're talking to the media or, writing your press release, really emphasize that. I have had media professionals call me during a big event I was hosting, asking whether they should come cover it, if there's anything that'll be good for them to capture on camera, because that visual component is so important to them. And I'll direct them to some aspect of our event that I think would be visually interesting. People are very, very visual, and the news media knows this, that in order to get people to watch, it's got to be interesting to look at. And when I say interesting to look at, I don't just mean things that are like bright and colorful, though, that could be something. I mean something that's going to tell a compelling or interesting story with the visual components of it. So a couple of examples might be showcasing kids having a lot of fun at an event, or engaging with senior citizens, telling the story of that connection. There's an emotional component there, footage of volunteers working hard to build something or serve meals, for example. A personal interview with someone impacted by a specific issue, or even a visual tour of a building or a space that has something important to do with your mission, and something important happens in that space. Tip number 5 is to time your outreach to the media very strategically and thoughtfully. And here's what I mean. Different media platforms have different cycles for their news, different timings of what they want to put out to the public. If you are, for example, trying to get the television media to come out to an event that you're having, then you want to take an approach where you are sending a couple of notices to them. You want to send a notice, your press release out to them maybe a couple weeks before the event is happening, so that they can kind of get it on their radar. But then you also want to send a media alert or a reminder that it's happening at like 3 or 4 in the morning before, on the day of your event. And that's because many television media professionals will be planning their day and what they're going to be covering very, very early in the morning before the rest of the world wakes up. So if you can get your press release or your reminder to the top of their email inbox the day at the exact time they're going to be planning their schedule for the day, you might get you might get lucky and be able to get their attention and convince them to come out to your event. Another thing to consider is that media companies use what's called an editorial calendar. This is probably true of all types of media, but especially with print or digital media companies. An editorial calendar is basically a schedule of what topics or themes they plan to cover over a period of time. It can be done for even up to a year. I know some magazines will have monthly themes that they want to cover. So in the month of January, we want to cover fashion, and in the month of February, we want to cover families and their pets, and so forth. So they are already thinking strategically, and perhaps even thinking how they're going to align what they want to cover with their own advertisers far in advance. So if you can get a sense of what the media is hoping to cover over a period of time, then you can suggest to them ideas for articles or media coverage that could match what they want to do for that period of time as well. And then you're going to capture their attention, because you're basically offering them ready to go content that aligns with the theme that they already planned out for that day, week, or month. Here's a kind of obvious example, but let's say that it's a holiday season and your local media wants to cover feel-good stories during the holidays. Well, maybe you have a feel-good story about a person that your organization served or supported through its amazing mission, and you want to share that with them. Knowing that that's what they want to cover at that time, you know exactly when to time your pitch to them to cover your story. If you're not sure how to figure out what media wants to cover, a lot of times, and this is especially true of print or digital, they will have some semblance of their editorial calendar published on their website, because some of them want third-party writers to send them articles matching those themes. So you might be able to just reach out to a magazine or a print publication and ask, hey, what are the topics you're planning to cover over the next several months? And just see if they send it to you. The media for the television is a little bit more agile. They obviously just want to cover whatever the biggest news is at that moment. Though some of them have broader themes or special programs like a morning show or something where they want to cover specific topics. My sixth and final tip for you today relates to something very important you want to make sure you do if you get your media attention, and that is to be sure to include your specific call to action. You might be nervous about getting on TV or having your name in a publication or something, but having this call to action is basically like why you want to do this in the first place. And a call to action, as a refresher, is what you hope the audience will do once they watch your story or read your story. Is it that you hope that they'll donate? Is it that they'll come to the event that you're hosting? Is it that they will sign up to volunteer? Whatever your specific call to action is, make sure you clearly state it during your media engagement. Otherwise, you might tell a great story, but no one, no matter how inspired they are, will know what to do with it. So if you're afraid you're gonna miss that part, practice in advance. Have you already gotten media attention for your cause? I'd love to hear how you got it and what you shared. Tell us about the story that you shared that really captured the media's attention. As I mentioned before, if you are starting a nonprofit or working on developing your plan for how you're gonna sustainably raise money for your mission, check out my website, foundertofulltime.com, where I have a couple of online trainings that cover these exact topics. And if you're looking for other resources and tips and funding opportunities, etc., I have a newsletter that I send out regularly to changemakers and nonprofit leaders like you. You can find the link to subscribe in the description below the video or in the comments, and of course you can opt out at any time. Final thing, I have a group on Facebook called Change the World or Bust, and we'd love to see you there. We got a couple thousand folks from around the world talking about the different ways they're making an impact. So come on over and join us there. Once again, I'm Amber Melanie Smith, and I hope that you found this video useful and helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye.